Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. It's your brother AbdelRahman Murphy here with another video on behalf of Qalam Institute, How to Get Married. This is video number 5. So we talked about self-evaluation, we talked about parental integration, we talked about the environment in which you can meet somebody and get to know somebody in introductions. We've also talked about what are some things that Islam teaches us to look for in a spouse, and what are some important things to keep in mind when looking, inshallah, in that general sense. Now, these videos are very general. I don't want anyone to think like, oh, I've gotten premarital counseling, or oh, I'm ready. No, this is a conversation starter, inshallah. This is something to kind of get you going, to make us literate in the institution of marriage, so that we can learn more and have successful, wonderful, happy marriages, inshallah. The 5th point now is how or what is okay now that we found somebody and we've done the whole process. What is okay for us to talk about as a fiance or as a person who's in an engaged relationship? What is okay for two engaged people to do? What kind of conversations are okay? Can they hang out with each other? Can they hold hands? Can they touch each other, etc.? What is allowed? Now, culture tells us a lot of things about this. Like, people will oftentimes say, oh, they're engaged, they can do this, or oh, they're engaged, they can't do this until they're married, etc. But Islam gives us a pretty clear-cut answer. Now, oftentimes the response to engagement in Islam, people say, oh, there's no such thing as engagement in Islam. This is kind of true and kind of not true. Yes, there is no such thing as a formalized institution of engagement in the normative Western sense where the couple can hang out and date, etc. That's not found in Islam for obvious reasons. Without commitment that is on paper through the nikah, through the contract, the marriage contract, there is no such thing as removing those barriers. And that's for the protection of the mind, body, and soul and the heart of a person. They want to make sure that these people are not vulnerable before commitment. But what is allowed in engagement, or what engagement does do to a person's marital status, is it makes it so that they cannot be proposed to by somebody else unless they inform the other person. And they also should not be playing the field, meaning you don't commit to somebody and then try to ask everybody. These are behaviors that are actually considered blameworthy in the Islamic tradition. So it doesn't necessarily change anything about you as a couple, but it does change your reality of who you are as a marital status sense. Now, it does allow for some things with parental consent and with supervision. You don't necessarily need to be engaged to do these things, but the engagement label is sort of a public notification that these things are taking place with the permission of the parents. Like when a couple is engaged and they go out to eat together with their parents or with a wali who's there. Let's say the person's brother and the girl's brother is there with his wife, and they go out in like a double date kind of scenario. Then that should be understood, that when the public sees that couple there that's not yet married but they're engaged, that their wali or so is there with them, watching them, making sure. So that leads us to our first sort of change in behavior, is that the two can talk to each other and get to know each other further for the purpose of marriage. And this includes compatibility. This isn't just asking questions like, what do you do for work? How much money do you make? Where do you want to live? Etc. This is also asking questions about compatibility, like what do you like to do in your free time? What are some things that you think are important in marriage, etc., etc. And those are a bunch of questions that we can go over, inshallah, at a later time. So the conversation component is now allowed with the condition that it can be checked in on, it can be seen, right? It can be heard. It doesn't necessarily have to be heard. They can allow for a private conversation, absolutely. You can leave the brother and the sister in the living room, for example. Everyone can sort of like head out, go do some work, get some stuff done in the house, and those people can have a pseudo or semi-private conversation. Meaning, when I say semi-private, I mean that at any point someone could walk in, a parent can walk in, and they shouldn't be embarrassed about what they're talking about in front of that third party. So the person can get to know each other. This does include emailing, this does include text messaging conversations, etc. However, I would highly recommend that things like texting, Skype, FaceTime, Google Hangout, whatever you use, that you need to be extremely self-disciplined in the usage of these technologies. And the reason why I'm saying this is because even though, inshallah, your intention is pure, everything's set, you're still not actually married. And so you need to make sure that you still have those boundaries, right? You can get to know the person, but you don't want to reveal too much about yourself, either physically or emotionally, or any of this. You don't want to set yourself up for pain. And so be very responsible and have a lot of taqwa of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this process. This doesn't mean that you don't like the person, and that person should not take it as such, but this means that you're just trying to make sure that everything is lined up before you get committed and nothing gets messed up beforehand or scratched out or scribbled out or There's no aberrations in the relationship. So be very responsible. I would set some healthy mutual limits. For example, hey, it's okay if we FaceTime, but only when my family's home, perhaps when I'm in the living room, etc., not in my bedroom, things like that. Hey, it's okay if we text message, but we really shouldn't be texting each other past 9:30 p.m., 10 p.m., etc. We should both be getting to bed anyways. We have school, we have work, whatever. Hey, it's okay if we Skype, but I really only want to do it on the main computer, not on my iPad or my laptop upstairs. Just set some healthy boundaries, inshallah, just so you can get to know each other, but you also don't violate the laws of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because you want to make sure you stay on the right path and on the right foot with this, inshallah. Now that we've talked about what is okay and what is not okay, let's focus on some questions that you should ask one another. These are very important, and what they do is they sort of paint the canvas of compatibility for you, so you can both sit back and admire the painting that you have and really understand it together as a couple and move forward in your relationship in a healthy way. There are some very important questions and ideas and topics that you guys should talk about that will come up in your marriage later on, and these are essential for you as a couple to talk about in order to prepare yourself for a successful marriage that lasts your lifetime, inshallah ta'ala. What are those questions? We will talk about them in the next video. See you soon. Jazakumullah khairan. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.